Feeling stuck on a home repair or upgrade? Whether it's plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, Live Home Help is here to guide you. For just $39.99, our licensed pros walk you through the process, virtually and in real time. From unclogging drains to replacing fixtures or troubleshooting your AC, we make sure you get it done safely and correctly. No guesswork, no costly mistakes, just expert help whenever you need it.
Wire strippers like this one are incredibly handy tools, but a lot of times we don't know all of the features and functions that you'll find on here. Obviously, we know that they can strip wires, but there's so much more that these little guys can do. Let's dive into each one of their functions to make sure you're totally familiar with it. So the next time you need that, you know exactly how to use this tool. Obviously, the first thing we need to cover is the wire stripper itself. You'll immediately notice that there's two sets of numbers and they're off by 2 from one side to the other. So over here, you can see the AWG, which means gauge. This is for solid core wires or solid gauge. And then over here, the Saint STR stands for stranded. Now these are different because they need to be stripped differently. I'm going to show you a 12 gauge wire. This is 12 gauge non-metallic or RX wire. Roke's is just a brand name, but we use it pretty universally. And you can see it's just a cut wire, very solid. Not a lot going on there. This is made of copper. This one, on the other hand, is a stranded wire. And it's made up of a bunch of individual wires in there called threads or strands. And each one of these need to be cut a little bit differently than a solid wire. You can see there's a kind of a thick insulation or jacket around there. So let's see what happens when we cut these on the wire stripper. For the solid, I'll start with the 12 gauge. I'll line it up in here, push down, and then you may want to twist a little. Just kind of depends on getting to know your individual wire strippers, if that's going to be needed or not. And then once you've got that, we don't need to rock back and forth or anything. We just need to pull away like that. You've got a nice clean cut. Now, the thing is, if we take our stranded wire here and we do the same thing, and we do that same 12 gauge on here, we're running a little risk here. Watch what happens. I'm going to crimp down, maybe twist back and forth a little, and then it's really not wanting to pull because this is the wrong size. But even if I can get it to do, so you can definitely tell. You get that feedback right away that this is just not the right size, and it doesn't want to work. And now that I've twisted it around, I'm going to try it again. Have to rock it to get it, because this just isn't meant. I mean, you can see what I'm talking about here. There we go. Now, if you look at a close-up of this, you can see it cut all of these wires along here. This was originally quite a bit thicker, and it just cut all of those off because we used the wrong size. That's why it's crucial that you use the proper gauge when you're stripping wires for stranded versus solid. By contrast, I'm now going to use the 12 over on the stranded side, and you'll see that we get a totally different result. So I'm going to place that on the 12 crimp. It's solid, give it a little twist, and then we pull that off. That went much easier. And then check out the wires. Everything's looking perfectly intact. We didn't cut any of those. And the sheathing is cut right to where it needs to be. That's an ideal strip right there. For the rest of the features, I'm going to work my way down from the top, down to the bottom here. So starting at the top, we have basically a set of needle nose pliers. You can see the little teeth that are present there. And these work great for all kinds of things. One of the things that they're commonly used for is removing these little tabs that are called mouse ears on the outlets or light switches that we work with. So I can take this, it's scored. You can see there's a little line right there for it to act as a break point. And so I can twist this a couple times, and then it will snap off this one's. Of course, taking longer than it normally does because I'm on video, and it did a crap job. Anyway, you get the idea though, but you can use the needle nose pliers to grab on there. Let's see if this one does any better. I'll grab it closer to the actual score line to see if that helps. And it just wants to break anywhere. But there, this is a super cheap little light switch here. This is the one that came in my house actually. That's why I don't mind taking these tabs off, because I'm not going to use this one. But you get the idea, even though that required a lot of torque moving down the wire strippers. The next tool here is these two little identical holes. Right here, they're the same size. So there's not a different one for solid or stranded that those labels have to do with the wire stripper itself. These two are the same, and they have one basic function, and that is to make hooks for your wires, to apply them to terminal screws. So I can feed a wire in like this. And what I like to do is have it so that it just sticks out a little bit. Like you see there, I just want a little bit protruding from there, maybe even less, honestly. So it's just barely going to grab on, then bend it around like so. And then you get yourself a nice little hook. Now I can see on this one, I definitely don't have enough jacket or sheathing removed for this to do a proper job. So on this one, for example, I'll strip off a little more just to show you exactly how this can work. So I'll take my 12 gauge, twist it a bit, peel it off, put that in just a little bit like so, wrap it around, and then I end up with something like this. And that's much more appropriate now. When I want to put that onto a terminal, onto a screw, I'm actually going to make that a little bit tighter. And this is where the needle noose pliers can help you out with that. They can tighten these guys up just a bit, and those teeth actually really help because they grab onto it and make the job easy. So I'm going to squeeze that in like so. Then when I place this on, I can hook it in like that. And that's enough ideal amount of contact here. The sheathing is up on the brass plate or near the brass plate, so it's not sticking off the end, leaving any exposed area there. And then this goes all the way around the hooks in good shape. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Next up, we have our wire cutter right here. So we have our blades, our teeth right there. And these do a great job at cutting wire again. Remember that these are really only meant for cutting copper wire. So you're not going to want to put any steel or anything like that in there. But for copper, copper's soft enough that these will cut all day and do a really nice job with that. So our wire cutters are great for there. You can use these for other things. You can technically cut Roke's wire, for example. Moving down, we have two more holes, and these ones do have different sizes. These are called bolt cutters or bolt shears, and these are coming in two sizes. We have 632 and 832, and these are for the little bolts or screws that we typically find in electrical devices or setups. I've got one of each right here to take a look at. So on the left here, we have the 632 on the right. We have the larger and more coarse threaded 832. Now to use these, a lot of times you end up with a bolt that's just too long. It won't fit in, for example, your ceiling fixture or in the box that you've got in your receptacle. So you've got to work with that. So I'm going to take the 632, for example, here. And what you do is just thread it right into the 632 hole on the front side. On the face, it should thread in nicely. Now you may need to squeeze these a little bit to line up the holes to get those going. And then as you thread that in, sometimes they can be a little bit stubborn depending on how well these are used and the screw itself. So if you need to, you can use a screwdriver to do the driving there. In this case, there's really no need. This fits in just fine. And then these are just shears. So if you give this a good hard squeeze and it's not simple, it does require some wrist power here. And then I can shear this head off just like this. There it goes. So depending on the wire strippers that you have, they might be more or less difficult. But the benefit of doing this here instead of just using some cutters is that as we back this out, what it's really doing is it's rethreading. It's basically acting as a die, and it's making sure those threads are in good shape so that they can thread right into the next thing. It's usually a little harder to take these out because we're forming those threads again. And then as we get it out, check this out. Now, all those threads are intact, and I can just thread this right into something. It's not going to be broken off or stubborn on that end there. It's really just ready to go, which is pretty great.